Hello again everybody, I'm Phil Liggett and welcome along to the video you've all been requesting, one of the Tour DuPont. This year the event has been granted a 2.1 status. That makes it simply the biggest ranked bike race outside of the Tours de France, Italy and Spain. The riders who come here can so easily climb into the top 10 bike riders in the world if they win the points. It brings together two great bike riders as well. Lance Armstrong, the American, on Team Motorola, who now defends his title, expects to be challenged by Tony Rominger and other top riders like Pascal Hervé from Festina. This year's Tour DuPont, well, it takes in a course of some 1,200 miles. It starts in Wilmington, Delaware, with a circuit race, purely a race for the leader's yellow jersey. And then from day 2 and over the next 11 days, the fight is on to win the major share of $250,000 of prize money. The race will pass through 6 states. It will finish on the outskirts of Atlanta in Marietta in Georgia. And this is the route. In fact, normally a prologue time trial here in Wilmington, but this year a race just for the race leader's yellow jersey. It's a circuit race of 51 miles around familiar roads, including the beautiful Brandywine Park. As the bell rings here now for the final lap, this is the breakaway group that has established itself, and it was going clear on lap 9 of the 12 laps of the race. Tony Rominger back in the main field, and none of the big race favourites really taking a big interest in getting the leader's yellow jersey right off the front of the race. Quick glimpse of Peter de Klerk's, an attack by Trent Klausner, a man who is riding in fact with broken ribs here, and Klausner of the Chevrolet LA Sheriff team is trying to go clear. He's led out very, very early indeed, and that might be his undoing. Arvis Pizik's tailed by Matt White, and as they come up to the line, they've caught Klausner. Matt White leading it out, but Arvis Pizik gets the stage win, his first ever as a professional. He's the first race leader. And so to stage 2 between Fredericksburg and Richmond, the race today staying totally in the state of Virginia. And again, a familiar start town in Fredericksburg, and at the headquarters of Medalist Sports in Richmond, where the race has always gone ever since its inception.
And we are off, ladies and gentlemen.
The voice of Jeff Roke, the race announcer, and the riders now filtering out onto the course for what is another long day, or long afternoon really, in the saddle, and they've already had a long drive by vehicle down from the start at Wilmington to the start here in Fredericksburg. The first break of the day, well, not really the first break, but the first really serious break being made here by Nico Ekut of the Kolstrop team. He went clear at 45 miles, and his lead is up to about as big as it has been. Well, the Kolstrop team have always distinguished themselves in the Tour DuPont. Wim Veenstra winning a stage in Wilmington in 1994, Peter Verbeeken also at Lynchburg in 1994, and the Belgian champion, or ex-Belgian champion, Benjamin van Itterbeek winning at Salem in 1993. But the field are closing in, and I don't think the same will be said here of Nico. We're on the outskirts of Richmond with still the tough climbs of the cobbled hill, which will conclude this race around the circuits of the city. As always, a massive crowd awaiting the race. Robbo Bank responsible, no doubt because of the leadership of Arvis Pizik, chasing down most of the breaks today. But now it's becoming more or less a free-for-all. And I was about to say, don't look over your shoulder, Nico, because the field are right there. And coming up, and the surrender from Ekut, who had a maximum lead of 3 minutes and 39 seconds out there at around about the 55-mile point. But now, as we complete the last 13 miles on the 4 circuits of Richmond, here's the first time up the climb, and immediately attack going at the front. Well, this is a really difficult climb. It's only short. You can see the road surface is not the best. The taste of Paris-Roubaix, I think. And the crowd know where to go to watch the race here. Over the top of the hill, this is in fact Australia, the new giant AIS team on the attack. To get in this race, by the way, it's Damien MacDonald. The riders had to turn professional, though basically they're still racing for the Australian Cycling Federation. Each paid the minimum salary of $1,000 a month, and all of that so they could qualify for the entry into this year's Tour DuPont. Because now it's a 2.1 race, the former amateur type riders are no longer eligible for competition. Attacked by Steve Hegg, champion of the United States in the time trial. But again, the reaction coming thick and fast, and the riders clawing their way across. But now the whole field have come here into Richmond after the chase down at Ecoot. They're not going to give up easily. It's unusual, though, for a sprinter to take this day out. It is a strong man's finish. Last year it was a 1-2 for Motorola, where Perron and Armstrong tore the field to shreds on this climb. And now you can see just how hard it is, and a rider in a little bit of trouble in the middle there. Patrick Ike it was. It looks as though he's either broken his chain or slipped his gears. This is the sharp right-hand turn that takes them down towards the finish on the last of 4 circuits. And now Lance Armstrong beginning to get a taste for the climb here. Well, I wonder if he remembers what it was like on the wall of Huy this year. I bet he does, when he was a great winner of the Flèche Wallonne. This is the steep bit now where you have to get in and grind your way up to the summit. Armstrong climbs behind him. The crowd on the Huy here. A Frenchman leads an American. An American has never won this race. Armstrong moves to the right and gives it everything. Armstrong goes, and I don't think Roux has an answer to that. Didier Roux just took one look to his right and thought, there's no way I can get the wheel of Armstrong. This is 110% now from the American. A brilliant race today for both of them, but there has to be a winner, and it's going to be Lance Armstrong. Armstrong just riding up this hill now as if it were flat. Super huge crowd here as he races towards the top of the Huy. He'll keep the pressure on all the way to make sure he has drilled that man into the ground into second place. Flèche Wallonne, Lance Armstrong takes it clearly on the line. And that the first ever win by an American in a monumental classic. And now Armstrong is going to win this stage of the Tour DuPont. Glenn Magnusson, the sprinter from Emporia Vita, the champion of Sweden, rather upset he lost the sprint, but he still congratulates Armstrong, because Armstrong, I think, has done enough now to take the leader's yellow jersey. And there is the confirmation of that. Armstrong in yellow at a very early stage of this year's Tour DuPont. A 5-second advantage over Magnusson and 7 seconds over Malcolm Elliott. And this stage 3A, the first part of a double-headed day, it culminates with the time trial. We leave Emporia, Virginia, and race to Raleigh in North Carolina. A new town, the City of Oaks, awaiting the arrival of the men of the Tour DuPont. And I wonder how the riders will treat this short stage, because, well, it's not so short, at just over 100 miles, but they do have the crucial time trial this afternoon. The man in yellow now, Lance Armstrong, and Motorola has a reasonable control over the field here, but they've set themselves a hard task now. Their leader has got the yellow jersey on almost at the start of this tour. Apart from the race around Wilmington, this is an attack here by Rob Mulders, who has been chasing the Coolmax sprints all day, and he's trying to build a lead in that. And he takes the Coolmax sprint here. That's at Lewisburg. Armstrong not interested, just keeping an eye on the rest of the race. And now we've got an attack by Tour de France rider Rob Mulders of Kohlstrop. These riders just never give up trying for a stage win. Kohlstrop chased down again by Leon Van Bon, who got his first stage win in the Tour DuPont last year. Jan Raas, the new manager of the Rabobank, which is a new team. Raas has always been the manager of the setup, and in fact he spotted Leon Van Bon in the Tour de l'Avenir a couple of years ago. Now the lineup for the sprint here. This is going to be a sprinter's delight today as they head towards the line now. And swinging to one side, there's a crash on the left of the road there. Davy McCook, Radisha Krubik have gone down. But the action here now is amongst the sprinters. Scott McKinley on the left of the picture. Marcel Vust, though, gets the stage. He wins. Barely a 90 minutes break, and the riders facing up now to stage 3B, the Raleigh time trial. Just over 7 miles around the city of Oaks, a very good undulating course, and a strong wind is blowing. Lance Armstrong will be the last to start. The pressure on him. He knows his record in time trials in the Tour DuPont, and until last year it wasn't very good. And he must wonder just how Tony Rominger is going. Rominger insisting he's here for the training, away from the glare of publicity in Europe. But he is the world hour record holder. He is one of the fastest men in the world when he's alone against the watch. And Rominger gets the countdown. We've already got back home the best time being done by Daniel Nardello, Rominger's teammate, 13 minutes and 29 seconds. As Rominger makes his start, 2-minute time gaps now for the last 10 riders to go. This great man who has vowed to take on Miguel Indurain this year in the Tour de France. He seems to be rather upset that Indurain concentrates on one big race a year, so Rominger's decided to do just the same this year and have a go for victory in the Tour de France. And he's riding pretty smoothly at the moment, picking up one of the MX Honda riders here for 2 minutes no less. And just look at the difference in styles. Rominger as smooth as silk. And the arrival of Tony Rominger, it's going to be a good time. He was best times at the check. He was ahead of Nardello by a couple of seconds. He comes up to the line. These must seem quite a long way. This little rise up to the finish here. The conditions now are very, very hot indeed. But this is going to be a good time. He's outside 13 minutes. 13 minutes 20 seconds for Tony Rominger. Armstrong taking to the boards on the other side of the finishing line. The rider's going away from the finish, which is on their right shoulder. Lance Armstrong, who has produced a tremendous improvement in the last 12 months as a time trial rider. He now has a lot of confidence to back that up. He knows what he's got to do, and he's straight into his smooth pedalling style. It's not quite as smooth as silk as that of Rominger, is it? It's a little bit more of a heavyweight style. And the halfway check is indicating he is seconds in front of Rominger. Rominger did a 5:14 split. Armstrong has done a 5:03, so 11 seconds better than Rominger, and that is extraordinary at half distance. So Armstrong is learning the time trial, and he is here to win the Tour DuPont for a second year. Well, this is quite a phenomenal ride in the conditions, not just the heat, but the strong wind that is blowing as well. And Armstrong is showing all of the signs. He might well get inside the magic 13 minutes. Nobody has done that yet, and is not likely to now. Armstrong is the last rider to start. The rider who started 2 minutes in front of him was the Swedish national champion, Glenn Magnusson, who rides here for the Amore Vita team from Italy, and he's trying to claim a place on the Swedish Olympic squad. Armstrong is already there after his great riding in the World Cup this year, pre-selected for the Olympic Games in Atlanta. Look at those legs. A kilometre to go, and all that he's got to do now is aim for the 13-minute barrier, because he's beaten everybody even with a kilometre to go. That's obvious. He is now racing to the line with one target left, to break 13 minutes. There is Magnusson, caught for 2 minutes on the line. Lance Armstrong for Motorola comes up towards the line, and this is going to be an emphatic time trial victory for Armstrong. As he comes up now, the clock is still inside 13 minutes. Magnusson, the clock is actually running on Magnusson's time, but that will all change. An all-out effort. Armstrong increasing his overall lead today in the Tour DuPont in the time trial. As he comes up to the line, you're seeing there the time of Magnusson, but Armstrong crosses the line. He knows he's won, and his time, a tremendous time, 12:56.96. That is absolutely incredible for Lance Armstrong. And so he cools down, joined by his team there. We'll now join him for the interview.
Lance, you go up against the world hour record holder. I guess arguably that makes him the best time trialist ever, and you beat him. What does that tell you about how far you've come in the past year?
Breckenridge Avenue, congratulations, very well. It's no secret that time trials were always my handicap. I've lost this race 2 times because of time trials, and when you lose big events because of a weakness, then then you really have to go home and look at what you're doing and do your homework and try and improve. So I think that this really shows to me that I have been doing my homework, and all the people that have been involved and helped me with my position and my bike and my training, their work is coming good as well. So last year, even though I won the time trial last year, it was a very course. It was a very good course for me. It was suited for me. This course was far from my ideal course as they get. So that means a lot.
What do you think of Lance's performance here? Were you surprised a bit in the time trial that you're the world's best at?
I'm not at the moment the world best. I was in 94 the world best. But now I'm not going so strong like in 94, but I'm quite satisfied with my result because it's the first time I'm going quite good this year.
But even so, Tony Rominger conceding a massive 23 seconds to Lance Armstrong. Mappe men second, third and fourth. Steve Hegg, the time trial champion of the US, gets fifth. Overall, Rominger still 35 seconds off the pace. Nardello is third. So we go on to stage 4, staying in North Carolina today between Raleigh and Greensboro. No real hills at all as we pass through Chapel Hill and head slightly uphill to Greensboro. 104 miles the total distance. It should in theory be a day for the sprinters as the riders say goodbye to Raleigh, which has proven particularly kind to the yellow jersey there, Lance Armstrong, with that incredible time trial performance, putting almost half a minute into one of the fastest time trial riders in the world, Tony Rominger. And now there's Frankie Andreu, and if you remember, he had a great Paris-Roubaix this year. What a domestique he is.
Frankie, you've just come back from injury and you've come straight through to the finish of this Paris-Roubaix. It's a hell of a race.
Yeah, it's a hell of a race, all right. I think today must have been the fastest Roubaix ever. From the gun, it was a crosswind battle, and it was just, we were flying, you know, riding in the ditches and going along. It was a hard race beginning to end. There was no easy part in the beginning because it was always having to fight for position, and at the end, our team rode good. We just missed out on that, you know, those top first 10 guys are just a level above us. But other than that, me, George, Bruno, Casper, Sean, were all active in the race, but, you know, we weren't there at the end.
Frankie, it's a mad race. Why do you keep coming back?
I don't know. In the middle of it, I had a bad section. I was like, man, I don't know why I do this race, but I love it. I mean, coming into this velodrome is the greatest moment. You know, hearing all the people and the announcer and everything like that. It's fantastic. It's a special race. You do 110 races on the road with the hills. You know, all the same stuff. This race is different, like Flanders. It takes a special character, a special rider, and, you know, sure, you have 5 or 6 to say they hate it. It's not a real race. But then look at the other 150 who love the race and come here every year. So I like it.
One final question. What about Johan Museo and his Mappe team today?
Well, I haven't seen it. I got to watch it on TV yet, but it sounds pretty impressive. Like I said, those guys are a level above us. And, I mean, the strongest guys won, I guess, you know. So congratulations to them, and we'll have to see what happens at Liège, you know, when we got some of our best guys back.
What about next year?
I'll be back, oh yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? Every top rider hates Paris-Roubaix before they ride it, and when they finish, they always say they're going to come back. Well, Lance Armstrong, grateful to have Frankie Andreu on the team, and I'm sure Andreu will be among the selections for the upcoming Olympic Games if Motorola has their way. Steve Hegg here, also aiming for an Olympic place, the time trial champion of the United States, and he's riding, as always, for Steve, an amazing character. He rode in the Olympic Games in Los Angeles, winning a gold in the pursuit in '84, and he never seems to get any older. He's superbly fit. Tony Rominger now in second place, wearing number 11, a number he's had in the Tour de France, and indeed a number which won the Tour de France when Stephen Roche had it back in 1987. But so far, there's only been a few sprints out of the pack, and Van Bon has been riding exceptionally well. He won the Coolmax sprint at Chapel Hill. He also won the Coolmax sprint at Burlington. So he is indeed building quite a lead overall in the DuPont Coolmax sprint series. And the MX Honda riders, with their team leader and the stage winner yesterday, Marcel Wurst, on it, they're going to try and keep this race together for sure for the finish in Greensboro, because they will bet on him in the sprint. There's Scott Mercier, a brief glimpse of the Saturn man, but let's get back to the leaders. Steve Hegg has gone clear here. A late breakaway with Serge Baguet, but Hegg is the strong man. The two of them went clear at 95 miles, and they're still only just ahead of the field. And not surprisingly, the chase back coming by the Rabobank boys as well. Hegg has rid himself of Bagay, but he may as well surrender too, because the field are right there behind him now. They're on the circuits here at Greensboro, and they're just leaving Steve out to dry a little bit before they sweep him up. But if you don't try, you don't win anything. And they're bringing the field up now. It's number 57, Juan Carlos Vicario, the Spanish member. Well, most of them are Spanish on the MX Honda team, but you do have the great German Marcel Wurst and the former Dutch junior world champion Tom Cordes on the squad, as well as Klaus Moller, one of the former top international amateurs from Denmark. Armstrong has kept his nose clean today. He's just watched everything. He's used his team well to chase the breaks that he felt might be dangerous. Other than that, he's let the field have their moments. He didn't counter the attack by Hegg and Bagay, which at one stage got a minute and a half, but now it's all over as Hegg gets swept up. MX Honda are the riders who come through, now hoping they've done enough to put Marcel Wurst back on the winner's podium at the finish in Greensboro. Hegg and Bagay were in the lead for 27 miles today. That was the longest break of the day. Yes, I know just how you feel. How are you, Steve? Through the finishing line. And now an attack going from Festina, who have brought here their team in training for the Giro d'Italia. Anxious to prove a point, I think. We've seen nothing of their team leader as yet, Pascal Hervé, but he is a climber specialist, so perhaps he's waiting for the climbs. Number 51 going through now is in fact Marcel Wurst. He pushes his way up towards the front in the Coolmax Race Leaders jersey at the moment, but I think that'll be on the shoulders of Van Bon from tomorrow. There is Tony Rominger, but just keeping an eye on the state of affairs, not doing too much at all. Now the riders mixing it ready for the sprint here in the Rabobank, and in fact that's Leon Van Bon. It was a 1-2 from Rabobank. The teammate backed off. I don't know who it was. It could have been Robbie McEwen, but he's released his man into the lead here. We're about 500 metres from the finish, and I think he may have done it. He comes up to a sharp left-hand bend, and look at this now. Leon Van Bon, who won stage 7 last year in Greenville, is not going to be caught here. The sprinters hesitated that split second. That's all you need to hesitate, and you've gone and you won't get brought back. Well, that was incredible. Van Bon saw his chance, took it well, and has won the stage. So Leon Van Bon for Rabobank gets his second win in 2 years in the Tour DuPont. But Lance Armstrong will finish this stage very happy with the way it's gone. The win for Van Bon, second Radisha Kubrick, third is Malcolm Elliott, and fourth Marcel Wurst. Lance Armstrong keeps his yellow jersey. Stage 5 from Mount Airy in North Carolina. We now go down to the heart of Virginia, and Roanoke, another popular staging town, normally sees a mountain time trial. The weather is changing. There's a warning today of heavy thunderstorms as we approach the end. Steve Bauer here on the Saturn team this year, and Axel Merckx, son of, yes, you guessed it, Eddie, and now making his way as a professional in his own right. And Tony Rominger, still high up in the overall classification in second place, enjoying his first real racing visit to the United States. None happier, of course, than Lance Armstrong. So far, 2 stage wins. He's also set the record for the fastest time trial ever at 32.85 miles an hour in a Tour DuPont. And Marcel Wurst on the left of our picture, the stage winner at Raleigh in that big sprint which took out 3 riders in a crash, all of them remounting, by the way, and are still in the race. And Motorola, Axel Merckx here, guarding his man, Lance Armstrong, on American roads. Armstrong deciding to try and win the Tour DuPont the hard way this year by leading it virtually from start to finish. This is Leon Van Bon taking the Liberty Fabric DuPont Lycra sprint in Stewart. 27 miles done. He broke clear of the field on the climb up to it. Amazingly, they let him go, and finishing a few seconds ahead of Serge Bagay and Blaudsen from Denmark. But the field regrouped as we wind away. Number of small hills today, nothing too serious. The steepest being the Cajas Mountain, which comes at 88 miles. That's a second category climb, but we've opened up the competition now for the GT King of the Mountains. And 2 leaders trying to get away here as we approach the climb of Short Snob. And the lead is around about 40 seconds at the moment. The break going at 39 miles, started by Robbie McEwen, who is the Rabobank rider, number 24. And I suppose Robbie's cursing his luck a little bit because he's been joined by ultra-fast sprinter Marcel Wust from the MX Honda team. Both of these riders are really fast sprint finishers. And Robbie, in his first full season as a pro, he's already had a win, but he's finding now that in pro cycling they go so fast for all of the distance that he's having a little bit of a problem unleashing his famous fast finish at the end. But I'm sure he'll get over that in the next year or so. Here's the main field as they now try to sort themselves out. They're not going to pay too much attention to the fact that two sprinters with no long-term sights on the final victory in the Tour DuPont are clear. The lead is building at the minute. Marcel wearing 51, and now there's a little group here trying to get across to them and chasing across David Plaza from Festina. Pretty strong stage race rider, Plaza, and he'll be lining up for the Tour of Italy, as indeed will all of the Festina riders here when they go home at the end of this year's tour. There's Marcel with a kilometre to go to the summit. And it looks as though Robbie is now in a little spot of bother. The hill is proving just a little bit too long. We're just about 60 miles covered. It's a long drag short snob. There's a small group trying to get away from the front of the field, which includes Jose Manuel Uraya and Felix Garcia Casas. We should get a glimpse of those pretty shortly now. And here's the pack being led by Rominger, Hervé and Armstrong. Now this is the chase group coming up here, and they're being led by Uraya. And they've got themselves quite a little lead over the main field there with Armstrong, Hervé and co. Number 33 is Felix Garcia Casas. Number 2 along for the ride is the policeman, Frankie Andreu. But I think they're not going to get up to this man here, Marcel Wust, before the summit. And he's going to get some rare points in the King of the Mountains for a sprinter. He's having quite a day. His teammate isn't going to ride him down, that's for sure. He's just keeping a tempo at the front of this four-man group. Pace being taken over by Felix Garcia Casas from Spain. And over the top of the climb, Wust has already gone through. That was Garcia Casas getting second, Uraya taking third at the top of Short Snob. Very uncomfortable way to go downhill, and it's almost as if he's trying to just take a little bit of pressure off that stiff back and aching legs. He's been out in front for quite a way now, something like 25 miles in front for Marcel Wust. He came up and he joined Robbie McEwen. He shed him on the climb, and now he's on his own. Sean Yates riding his last Tour DuPont after a sparkling career, which included the Olympic Games back in 1980 in Moscow. He retires this year and is adamant he will not be in the Motorola lineup for the Tour de France. And on this occasion, I think we'll have to believe him. He said it before and he's turned up, but I think this year he won't be in Den Bosch for the start. There's Armstrong, his men all around him, and the men that matter are also all around him. He's not too worried about this small breakaway at the moment. The organisers rather upset that the reffing team did not arrive. They made an excuse before the start of the Tour DuPont, which dropped the race of Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov, who's now joined the reffing team this year, and Mauro Bettin, who's also riding well. They've picked up Wust, so we now have a small leading group. He's seen his teammate, the gentle Pat, just to say, we're alongside you, come and join us. Well, I'm not sure whether his legs want to join anybody right now, because Marcel has had a long time out there. But now Felix Garcia Casas driving on the race. And this is an interesting breakaway, but it is still not that far ahead. They're only something just over 1 minute in the lead. marvellous cycle racing roads in the state of Virginia, especially in the Roanoke area. And the riders probably just happy they spared the time trial this year, which was a really tough time trial. But as they make the descent down, you can get a little glimpse of the thunder that's rolling around in the skies here, but the riders happily staying away from it. Roads lovely and dry for the long descent, heading down towards Boone's Mill. And service on the right from the peloton, but we'll have to leave that to someone else. It was too quick for me to spot who it was, apart from the fact it was a Mappe rider. It wasn't Tony Rominger. And Wust is going again. Can you believe this? He's just been collected and he's attacked again. Well, an incredible piece of riding by Marcel Wust, the non-climber of the race. I'm beginning to wonder if indeed he is a climber these days. Marcel thinking too of the Giro d'Italia, the Tour of Italy, because he'll be going up there with the team. They've got their ride in the Giro d'Italia this year. And Marcel Wust now settling in for yet another period on his own. He's been virtually in the lead, really, since about the 38th mile today, 39th mile. Stage 113 miles long, and this is back in the peloton, where policeman Yates has got control over the field. Bobby Julich just behind him, flexing his legs. Meanwhile, let's get back onto the climbs. This one is now the Cajal Mountain, coming at about 86 miles to start, and this is a climb that the Tour DuPont has never been up before. In fact, until a few years ago, it wasn't a road at all, it was a track, and it was a great road for mountain biking, apparently. Pascal Hervé launching a little acceleration from the field. This is the steepest climb we've encountered so far, and it looks as though there are a number of climbers now. This is Andrea Petuelli from the Amore Vito team. He's going clear, but they're not going to pick up Marcel. He's won the biggest climb so far. He'll be the king of the mountains tonight, and that is quite amazing. He'll be the first real wearer of the GT King of the Mountains jersey at the end of the stage. Pascal Hervé is coming up in second place. Beautiful climb this, a real back road in Virginia that's not normally used by traffic. Over the top then, Wust gets the preem, and he looks content now to wait. Yes, and I don't blame you, Marcel. There is a fast and long descent down to Boone's Mill, and then we go over one more climb before we finally get into the finish down in Roanoke. 88 miles covered. Pascal Hervé coming up the climb, just a few seconds off the pace. Team leader of Festina looks over to see what's happening behind, and it's Rominger Armstrong, and a counter-attack coming over the shoulder, but in fact it was Rominger who snatched the points ahead of Armstrong just on the line there. And the race, a little bit of damage done here. You've probably got 20 riders split away from the field on that climb. It was only second category, but it was quite steep midway through. Eased a little bit and then kicked again towards the finish, and they've in fact picked up Marcel Wust here. Now let's see who they are as the camera pulls back. It looks as though we've got the whole family here now. George Hincapie, Bobby Julich, doing his fair share of the work, and Motorola getting themselves back in control. Hervé is in this group, so too is Tony Rominger, and in fact there's a puncture here, and this is Hervé, so he must have been slightly ahead when he punctured. Well, that was a little bit of bad luck. Always the chance taken to stock up with water and drink, and Hervé soon on his bike. And the teammate bringing him back into the action, that's Juan Arenas. And no real attack from the field, just tempo riding. They're allowing the course itself to eliminate the weaker ones today without really ramming home the attacks. And of course, when you say something like that, you have an immediate attack. And the rider has gone clear. And it's one of the Colstrop boys. I should have guessed that because they attack whenever there is a break. That's Scott Mercier who's gone with the Colstrop rider. And Mercier looking to see now if anybody, namely the man sitting on his wheel, is going to come through and do some work. And the answer is yes, he is. And this looks like Tom Demey, is it? Of the Colstrop team, who's joined Scott Mercier at the front. Scott Mercier winning South Africa's two top tours this year, the Rapport Tour of South Africa. And a nice smile from Marcel saying, yes, I am mad, but don't worry. He's now the leader of the GT King of the Mountains competition, and Scott Mercier, to finish the little tale, also won the Tour of the Cape. They're down on the Cape Peninsula. And they were both in February, tickling March, and then he's come back to complete his season here in the United States with the Tour DuPont. Armstrong stalking the bunch here. This is the last little climb. And Armstrong making sure he's always in a position. There's one or two riders, as you can see, have gone off the front of the group. Laurent Madouas, number 5, the new man on the Motorola team, along with Axel Merckx, number 6. These were the stars of the Liège-Bastogne-Liège event, along with Lance Armstrong, of course. And as you can see now, over the top of the mountain, descending Linville Mountain, the weather has changed dramatically. The weather is now absolutely atrocious. The roads are greasy as the riders are filtering their way down in towards the outskirts of Roanoke. There is an escape group here of some 20 riders. Armstrong, and there's Rominger right there at the front too. Madouas going through, working hard. Pascal Hervé is here, and so too is Jean-Cyril Robin. That's him in second place. So as far as I know, all of the big names have made the selection here as they race into the last 2 kilometers of the stage. Armstrong hasn't put a pedal wrong just at the moment. He's always watched every move. They took no chances on the way off the mountain either, because these roads can be quite treacherous. The smooth surface and the rain is torrential. Madouas goes round first, followed by Rominger. And Rominger's gone down. In fact, Rominger was round first and Rominger went down, I think, and he took out Madouas with him. And there's an acceleration by Axel Merckx, who just checked across to see how Madouas was. Madouas back on his bike. And now we've got Scott Mercier trying to lead the chase back here with Steve Bauer. Bauer really kicks very hard here. They are very close to linking up with that group just ahead. It's about 15 seconds in front. And now Steve Bauer is going to try and close it by himself. He's approximately 2.5 kilometers, just over a mile and a quarter from the finish. So Steve Bauer trying to go across the gap alone. Steve Bauer riding out his career. He hopes for the place in the Olympic Games for Canada, and the way he's riding, he will certainly get that. Beaten to the gold medal by Alexei Greywall the last time he rode the Olympics, which was in 1984 in Los Angeles. This is the corner where we've just seen the fall of Rominger, who is now chasing along with Madouas. Bauer goes in, Bauer goes down. Bauer also overcooked it on the bend. But the roads are so greasy, you just slide along, and thankfully no injury. He's straight back on his bike. But unfortunately, the hard work to get the break all over. Bauer is now back in the chase group. We rejoin the attacks at the front now, as Armstrong again on the left comes clear. This will be another stage win for Armstrong. Win number 3. Whenever the going is tough, then the tough get going, and Armstrong is certainly that. Armstrong coming away for the victory. Jean-Cyril Robin will get second. Federico Eschave is in third place. That was the order over the line. And the riders are absolutely soaked as they pull themselves back into order, because that was Arbis Pizix, who crashed also on the final bend. A number of falls in the last 2 kilometers of the race today. Another one delayed was Michael Bogert from Holland. They all seem okay, although the face tells its own story of pain here as Bogert makes his way to the line. He'll be given the same time. He fell in the last kilometer. It's only a matter of crossing the line, although these days you don't even have to do that under new rules anymore. This is how Armstrong did it. Look at the power of this man. He can't go wrong at all at the moment. 3 stage wins now. A mountain stage, a time trial, and a flat stage. So Armstrong, with a small bonus there, increases his overall lead in the race, and the news reaches us. They've given Rominger the time of the chase group along with Madouas. Very strange. Armstrong winning the stage ahead of Jean-Cyril Robin, Echevet, Axel Merckx getting 4th, Pascal Hervé taking 5th. The overall situation, Armstrong now 61 seconds clear of Rominger. Nardello is in 3rd place overall. And that's not a bad lead for the second longest stage of the race today, staying in Virginia throughout as we head away from Salem to Blacksburg. And it is a ride of 135 miles and the biggest mountains on it so far. The man who is eclipsing the Coolmax sprint at the moment, Leon Van Bon, and the Mappe men who are going to have to plan, Baffy on the left here, how they're going to help their rider in second place. Here he is. Now, was he surprised by the decision yesterday of the time back?
Yeah, I'm surprised also, but I think for the future of the cycling it's quite a good decision, because for the security of the cyclist, if now everybody try to be in the first position and risk to fall and all these things, I think with this decision here they took a little bit away the pressure to stay in the first and to risk the falls, the crashes.
But I'm not so sure Lance Armstrong was so impressed. What do you think, Lance?
I think that this is a sport about the elements, and we have hard courses, we have hard conditions, we have hard weather. That's a part of the sport. There's a rule, and the rule has never been broken, the rule has never been bent. It's 1 kilometer. If you're outside of that, you're outside of that.
And Pascal Hervé, another man, of course, yesterday who suffered by the promotion of Rominger to the group ahead of him, when in fact he fell of his own volition and was outside clearly the 1 kilometre to go rule, where you are given the same time as the group you are with should you fall. The judges perhaps feeling it was the fairest thing to do under the conditions, but they did create a rule that didn't exist. And what would they have done if Lance Armstrong had fell there instead of Tony Rominger? Then there would have been screams of bias from the whole of Europe. However, the race goes on. It's the longest stage so far, and the rider who is out in front here is Sascha Hendricks. He has been the lone attacker today. He went clear at 10 miles. He quickly built up a lead. This was a rider who had a little bit of a crash in the Tour of China, but he also had a great start to his career this year in the race in Mount Buller, which is just north of Melbourne, Australia, where he chased Pat Yonker all the way up the mountain. It's a climb like Alpe d'Huez, by the way, and he finished second overall in the Mount Buller Cup 2-day race. He's on the attack. He's a young German rider, Tony Rominger's Mappe boys, and that's Rominger on the right, looking quite relaxed on the climb here. And Pascal Hervé marking him closely. At Rominger's arm bandage there from the fall, so to his leg. He went down with quite a bang. But earlier in the day he had said when the rain started to Lance Armstrong, do these roads get greasy when they're wet? And Armstrong said they sure do. Well, Rominger was just testing the roads. Field basically all together. And it's good to see that the team from Dortmund is out on the attack, but I don't think they're going to stay out there too long. The race now tapping their way in. Hendricks was lying 105th overall, more than 30 minutes behind Armstrong, so hardly a man he would chase down. He's come back of his own volition. Well, Lance Armstrong looking pretty cool today, and so he should. He's got 3 stage wins under his belt. All of the stages that matter he's won. Maximum time, attacked by Tyler Hamilton, going up on the outside for the new team, the US Postal Service team, and immediately being chased by a Mappe rider. Tyler Hamilton going clear, had a very good ride in the Teleflex Tour won by Nate Rees in Holland. Hamilton was second, and the third place was the amateur world champion, the last ever amateur world champion, Danny Nelson. So Hamilton trying to steal a march here if he can, but it doesn't look as though it's going to go for too long, because the race is already beginning to become active once more at the front. The Catawba Mountain and the Coolmax Sprint at Newcastle, and the Potts Mountain and the Potts Mountain, which we actually climbed twice, 2 different climbs, all won by Hendricks. We're now heading up to around the 90-mile point of the race, and everybody looking for who is going to make the next move. Mountain Lake comes at 114 miles. It is a brute. It's a first category climb, and it kicks violently towards the summit. And Festina are trying desperately now to soften up this race. Hona Lauka from Finland, who is a great climber. Now, we don't get many good cyclists coming out of Finland, but this man is a very good climber indeed, and he's launching the attack on Johns Creek. 89 miles covered at the moment. Bobby Julik, George Hincapie, Lorne Madouas, Axel Merckx, all the men, Frankie Andreu, all around their man in yellow. They've been given a mammoth task this week. They've got to hold the race lead for the complete Tour DuPont. And it doesn't look to me as though Lance Armstrong's too interested in relinquishing it. Hunalauka is a minute 35 seconds up, but he's on his own as he heads up towards Johns Creek summit. They're just keeping a steady eye on him at the minute. He lies 32nd overall, 2 minutes 20 seconds down. And he's not far off now, gaining all of that lost time. He's going to be the yellow jersey on the road very shortly if he keeps this tempo up. A good move this by Festina, trying to cause a reaction from Motorola because they'll soften up, they hope, Lance Armstrong in favour of their leader, Pascal Hervé. But the climb is getting pretty steep here on Johns Creek. It's a second category climb towards the GT King of the Mountains. There's Pascal Hervé, content in the thought that his Finnish teammate is away. Tony Rominger is here. Rominger has been surprised by the types of hills here in Virginia. He was telling me only yesterday that they are very difficult, much different to the big climbs in Europe. Over the top of Johns Creek, Lauka is first. His lead is 2 minutes and 44 seconds, so he is the race leader on the road at the moment, and surely that's going to cause a reaction from Motorola soon, and it looks like it's coming. Hincapie, Andreu, Julich, Yates, Madouas, Axel Merckx, and the leader just sitting and waiting. Mappe, who are in second place overall with Rominger. They're in second team overall at the moment. There is Rominger just sitting down the line. And here is Hunalauka, who I think is beginning to show one or two cracks in those bronze legs just now. Max Tester, the doctor of Motorola, just shouting a word of encouragement to Big Sean. He's done it all before, he's seen it all before. But this year he's seeing it for the last time. And a shout of go, go, go from team leader Armstrong, because the board is indicating now that the lead is up and they're going to have to do something about it. We're heading towards Mountain Lake. Armstrong has good memories, happy memories on Mountain Lake in Tour DuPont's gone by. But he knows this time he's going to have to be able to move with the men who are certain to attack, although he must have all of the confidence required. Here's Lauka. And when he starts glancing over the shoulder, I think it's an indication, oh, well, say no more. I was going to say it's usually an indication they know that they're getting tired. And so Lauka has been brought back, and brought back importantly in about 4 miles before the climb of Mountain Lake, which is important. A chance for the whole field to recuperate a little bit. And this now is the start of the climb. Motorola have got Armstrong into a position, but watch out on the right shoulder, because this is an attack, and I think it's Pascal Hervé who has gone very early on. It's not Hervé, in fact. So the attack wasn't Hervé. It looked like it might have been Garcia Casas who went. And that's an interesting move. That's the second attack has been made here by it's Juan Arenas. Juan Arenas who's gone. So Festina are really trying to soften this race up on a stage they feel they have a chance. And it's good to see. Festina have been a great team in this race so far, and we still feel that Hervé has not played his cards yet. He's always allowed his teammates to make the running. And Armstrong, slow to react on purpose, I feel. He's allowing the smaller team members to run. I'm sure he won't be so passive if Hervé or Rominger puts in an attack. And it looks here as though Steve Hegg is finding the climb just a little bit too much for him as he gets tailed off the advanced group. The peloton has split. Federico Echavé in his second echelon. And it's a very select little group that's starting to move away here. Echavé, Garcia Casas, Gonzalez from Mappe, Tony Rominger's here. I just caught a glimpse of Andy Hampston as well. Robin, a couple of the Amore Vita riders. Patuelle, number 117, 111 is Maurizio Di Pasquale, who finished second in the core stakes race at the US Pro Open Championship last year when it was won by Norm Alvis. And now Armstrong is deciding it's time to start accelerating and picking up the boys who have gone clear. Sitting very nicely, those big legs, pedaling a low gear as he climbs up towards the top of Mountain Lake. This, by the way, is a tough climb. Now, I think Hervé is ahead of him. Hervé went on this climb. And Armstrong moving steadily up to the leader on the road. Terrific power. He just kicks. He's not a climber by the measures of a Pantani because he's far too big for that, but he is just a man that uses that extraordinary power he has to bind his way up to the summit. Here he catches Pascal. So we've now got two leaders here, Hervé and Armstrong. The man missing is Tony Rominger. And speak of him, there he is now, and it doesn't look as though he's enjoying this climb at all. He's got his Mappe boys, and I think he's having to slow them down to keep with him. So it's a real good chance now for both Hervé and Armstrong to hit Rominger very hard on the climb of Mountain Lake. There's still 20 miles to go once you're over the summit, and there's one small climb of Brush Mountain to come, 10 miles from the finish. Well, there's no doubt who the support is for. As Armstrong climbs, Pascal Hervé, who comes here with some great results this year already, including second in the Tour of Chile and second in the Tour of Pays Basque in Spain. Well, one rider in the chase group is Andy Hampston, now here riding for the first time back in the States in the US Postal Service. I wonder if he remembers this great occasion on Alpe d'Huez. And here they are, Hampston on the left, Franco Vona, Jan Nevens, the big surprise yet again, hanging on at the back, and goodness knows how he's feeling on this climb, because Hampston is a great climber. And just look at this now, the water being given by the fans. They've been out, as always, coming here some 3 days before the Tour riders to claim their spot on the slopes. Many of the spectators here have been coming for as long as the Tour has been coming here, and always taking the same position. And now he's having the greatest moment of his career, I would suggest, because this is the stage everybody wants to win. Andy Hampston and the Motorola team, they won one stage last year, their first year of sponsorship with Phil Anderson, and now Andy Hampston is going to give them really the finest stage they could possibly hope for. A look over his shoulder, no one there, Andy. And Andy Hampston waves to the crowd. A great finish indeed for Andy Hampston. Vona will come over in second place, and Boya and Nevens will not be too far behind, but that's the order of finish at Alpe d'Huez. The man of the day, there's no doubt who that was. Andy Hampston has pulled off the ride of his life here.
That's got to be one of the sweetest days of your life.
I tell you, it's all I've ever wanted my whole career is just really good form and a good mountain showdown, and can't ask for more than 500,000 people to cheer me on.
Well, there aren't quite that many for Lance Armstrong today, but he is the quiet leader of the Tour DuPont. Andy Hampston, and now riding out what has been a most brilliant career. Remember, he was the first American to win the Tour of Switzerland. He has finished in the top 4 in the Tour de France, and he won that marvellous stage at Alpe d'Huez. He has been a real ambassador for American cycling. And there he is on the right of our picture, and again coming here with very little training in his legs. He is at the moment riding the best of the United States Postal Service team. You can't beat natural talent, that's for sure, and Andy certainly got plenty of that. But let's get back to two other very talented men right now, because they're on the way down the mountain. The prize over the top was taken by Hervé. Armstrong naturally in second place, there's a gap. Tony Rominger has gone over in third, Federico Echeverri fourth. Andy Hampston, by the way, he went over there in sixth place. Words of wisdom from Team Motorola to tell them that there is this chase group of some 10 riders trying to bring them back, but at the moment the gap is looking pretty good. It's around about a minute and a half. We're heading now for the small climb of Brush Mountain, which will come 10 miles from the finish in Blacksburg, the college town where we can expect thousands of spectators in the college grounds to welcome home the riders in the Tour DuPont today, and that they're going to welcome home a very confident race leader indeed, even if he gets beaten by Pascal Hervé today. Hervé is not coming through as frequently as he was. He seems to be having difficulty controlling the sheer speed here of Lance Armstrong. You see, he's not willing to come through, and I'm quite sure that Armstrong is noting this. The climb of Brush Mountain is not a difficult climb in gradient, but it is if you go up it very quickly. And the Mape boys in the chase group, there's plenty of them, there's 3 of them here, and they're all trying to do something. And on the climb now, we've got Airy. This is a good acceleration of the overall classification for Pascal. He's going to finish up in 2nd or 3rd overall if he keeps this up. Just over half a mile to go to the summit of the last climb of the day. Airy won the climb of Mountain Lake. Lauka won the climb of Johns Creek, and Hendricks won all of the other climbs today. 29 years of age, Pascal Airy. Turned professional very late after a series of injuries as an amateur. A concentration of Andy Hampston. By his own admission, he hasn't trained too much for this event, not by choice but by situations, and yet here he is in what is now looking like one of the most crucial moves of this year's event. Armstrong having a little rest. Thought he'd gone to sleep for a minute on the way down the mountain. They know that their lead is increasing all of the time here. It's now up to around about a minute and a half. And there's Tony Rominger. Not much they can do on the descent except sit and wait for the flatter roads before they start to try and eat into the lead of those 2. They shouldn't have let them go, but I suppose there wasn't much they could do about it. They went first on the climb, and a tremendous acceleration midway up by Armstrong. Nobody could master that at all, and he pedalled quickly to the side of Airy, and now the 2 of them are building quite a lead over the field. There's also small time bonuses at the finishing line. They get 10 seconds for the win, 6 seconds and 4 seconds. On the sprints every day at Cool Max points, they get 3, 2 and 1 second. Well, the 16 teams that started this race now know who the main man is, that's for sure. And he let them know on day 2 of the event. And Armstrong still churning that huge gear. He's tempting Airy. As far as I know, Airy does not speak any English. But they're having some sort of a conversation there, and now he's gritting his teeth. Armstrong just winding up those gears on the climb. He's gone down onto his inside of his chainwheel. This isn't the climb of Brush Mountain, by the way. This is a nasty little climb which has no designation at all, which comes just before the finish. And each year, it is always a difficult board before you get to the line, and the springboard is turning out to be, because he's cracked Airy by just keeping the tempo on, and Airy halfway up has said that's it. And it looks as though his team car's right alongside and to try and draw some effort out of him. But Armstrong looks to me now as though he's heading for win number 4 in Blacksburg. Armstrong, that familiar climbing style, all of his weight over the front wheel of the bike. Keeps his rhythm going without doing any more than he has to do, and he grinds himself a lead over Pascal Airy. Well, we are only 2 miles from the finish here, and Airy hit the wall in a big way there. By the time we get down to the finish, this stage will have taken more than 6 hours to run, and Airy is going to now have to hang on to survive in 2nd place. The break is around about 2.5 minutes back. So that's more than enough to survive, I think, for both of these riders. It's the whole of the Mape team finding no friends in that chase group, least of all Andy Hampston. Although he's on a rival team, he is American, and he's following the Mape boys. He knows they must chase for Rominger. So, once again, Lance Armstrong is going to arrive at a stage finishing line in the yellow jersey as winner of a stage of this year's Tour DuPont. Nobody's going to stop it now. We go round the back way into Blacksburg and then into the college grounds. It's a finish a sprinter would love, but because of the hills, the sprinters never get a chance to find out. There's the chase group, still as strong as it was, but only the Mape team doing any of the work. Jean-Sully Robin is in that group as well, but of course you will know that Airy has been dropped now by Armstrong. I'm sure his manager will have told him, so he will not be initiating any attack there. Through the main street here in Blacksburg, heading down the road. Another marvellous job by the state police, and the Virginia police really do know how to welcome this event. Over the years, they have become so good at it. And they're giving Armstrong, an American, a clear shot at another stage victory. This man is on such a high, he is totally uncontrollable in this race. There's the straight I was telling you about, a sprinter's dream that they never get to see. Armstrong just takes the precaution of making sure that Hervé's braces haven't got caught on the back fender of the car. But they haven't. Armstrong's got plenty of time to lose even a few seconds here as he salutes the crowd, as he conducts the orchestra, as I always say. And Armstrong is gaining big time today. The GC is going to make pleasant reading tonight. Win number 4 for Lance Armstrong, and we're only at the completion of stage 6. Here's Pascal Hervé. Well, Hervé, in the last 3 kilometres of racing, throws his arms up in despair, has lost 1 minute and 10 seconds. Can you believe that? He can't. The race for third place being led out by Tony Rominger, but Jean-Louis Robin and Garcia Casas are coming over Rominger. Echeverry is also there as Rominger drops away. Robin gets third place at 2-3 for Festina. But not a 1-2-3, because Motorola again, their man in yellow, has done it once more. The confidence speaks for itself. And so we move on to stage 7 now, from Wytheville, Virginia, to Bristol, which is on the state borderline of Tennessee and Virginia, the main street literally in both states. And so the overall situation after that ride into Blacksburg, Hervé is now up into second place, 2 minutes and 53 seconds behind Armstrong. Rominger is down to third, 3 minutes and 59 seconds behind. Fourth, Axel Merckx for Team Motorola into fourth at 4:29. Big time gaps, but then if you're riding like Armstrong, I think you expect big time gaps. And the riders facing up, apart from the rain shower we had on the final couple of K into the finish at Roanoke, this is the first real wet day we've had on this year's Tour DuPont. The ride to Bristol, 111 miles, as we race into the state town of Tennessee and Virginia. Looking here at a little breakaway tried to be formed by Federico Colonna. In fact, 6 riders have come together here. Laurent Madouas is the Motorola man. There he is, second from the end. Behind him is Steve Bauer. We've also got Trent Klausner, Chevrolet LA Sheriff, Tyler Hamilton, US Postal Service. And that's a break of 6. And they got clear at 13 miles with Van Bon winning the Coolmax sprint at Rural Retreat. And the breakaway going clear. Nobody in this breakaway are yet a serious threat. In fact, the nearest to the leader is his teammate Madouas, who's 23rd overall, 10 minutes and 42 seconds back. Van Bon is the next best, 32nd overall, and he's looking for picking up a mere 14 minutes and 7 seconds. There's also Steve Bauer, 12 minutes 26. He's second best. Van Bon is third best overall. This is Federico Colonna, said to pack quite a finish. I've never seen him actually race before, but he is the man that's being groomed, according to Adriano Baffi, as the man who will take over from him as the sprinter of the Map A team. Had a couple of stage wins already this year. Tour of Mallorca and the Circuit of the Sarthe in France. Madouas riding there to protect the breakaway. That's his series. Back here at the main field, it looks like Bobby Julich is the designated Motorola man to try and just have a presence at the front with Lance Armstrong at the moment. There's no sign of this breakaway coming back. They're up to a lead of 5 minutes 45 seconds. I don't think they're going to come back today. And I don't think they think they're going to come back either, because the way they're riding, they're dicing now as to decide who's going to take out the stage. And a very strong kick here by Laurent Madouas. That's a good time to go. He's caused the reaction. Hamilton half-heartedly goes forward because he saw the line coming across. Bauer tags in on the back. Although the lead is coming down now, it's dropped down to inside 3 minutes. It's a very manageable lead indeed, and they're inside 4 kilometres to go to the finish. It's been away all day. Hamilton winning the climb of White Top Mountain, Colonna winning the climb of Iron Mountain, Trent Klausner taking the Coolmax sprint at Damascus. So the 6 leaders have been sharing the load quite appreciatively. Klausner dropped from that lead group now. And in fact, Tyler Hamilton going for gold here as he tries to go for the finish. The US Postal Service are anxious for a stage win in this year's Tour DuPont. Tyler's their man. Bauer is straight onto him, followed by Colonna. As they come into the final bend, Bauer has been forced into the lead. The sprinter is right there. Colonna into the main street here in Tennessee. The yellow line demarks the states of Virginia and Tennessee. And I think we're on the Virginian side of the road at the moment as Bauer opens up the sprint. Bauer comes through now. Colonna is trying to come on his shoulder. Bauer's been forced far too early to lead out. Colonna gets it. Bauer is in second place. And the third place goes to Tyler Hamilton. Well, that's a win for Mappe. Here comes the main field now. Madouas was last of that group. Now, can Mappe finish off with their other sprinter? Because he's right there. Adriano Baffé tucked in third place at the moment. And it's going to... Baffé's gone to the right. Baffé is going to wipe up for Mappe from the best of the rest as well. So anything his protege can do, Adriano can do as well. Well, Steve Bauer is the rider who came so close to the win, but he should really have gone with Laurent Madouas.
Yeah, Laurent made a really strong attack. You know, he'd been taking it easy pretty much the whole day. So I looked out for him making an attack, you know, but it's just a little bit far from the finish, and the other guys had some legs to chase us down. But I was still confident, I was still feeling good, and it was a cat and mouse game before the sprint. And, you know, I was on Colonna's wheel, and then Tyler made a move, you know, that looked pretty good, you know, and I figured coming in that last corner in the rain, it might be best to take it from the front, but Colonna was right on my wheel, so what are you going to do?
Not a lot, Steve, but second place is not a bad ride either. There is Steve Bauer. He gets the Power Bar Most Aggressive Riders jersey of the day on the left. Tyler Hamilton on the right. Autographs all round and no change overall. Armstrong still leads. And Lance Armstrong always has happy memories on the top of Beech Mountain in the Tour DuPont. Will he have the same today? 112 miles, 8 mountains in prospect, finishing right at the top of Beech Mountain, deep in the heart of North Carolina. Virginia on the left, Tennessee on the right, and the rain is still coming down, although the promise is, judging by the phone calls from Beech Mountain, it's quite a pleasant day there. It's usually the other way around. Just look at the rain here, but he wouldn't notice it. It's all around his feet anyway. And you know, the one rider who has ridden so well but claimed so many second places of quality in his life is Steve Bauer. Do you remember this one in Paris-Roubaix in 1990? The two fast finishers are going away. Van Hooijdonk is at the limit of his speed. Bauer is in the back of the group, but Van Hooijdonk goes for a long one. He's the least likely to win the sprint. Bauer gets his wheel, a good piece of riding by Steve Bauer. Plankett tries to come on him too. But look at this ride now by Van Hooijdonk. Goes high, opens the door to Steve Bauer. Bauer comes on the inside, and it looks as though Steve Bauer's going to get that first classic victory on the line. They are almost together, and you know Eddie Plankett was right on him on the line. We'll have to look at that again, but there was nothing in it at all. Steve Bauer on the right at this stage was in the clear lead. I don't know where Eddie Plankett found it from. I bet his eyes were shut though, as he just lunged his bike at the line. Watch the white line. Oh, it's possible that Plankett has shaded it. And in fact, they are saying that the victory has indeed gone to Eddie Plankett. The scrummage is on here as the cameramen seek out the Belgian. He has finally won Paris-Roubaix in the 8th time, and there he is, Eddie Plankett, the winner of Paris-Roubaix in the closest finish in the history of cycling. The official verdict is 1 millimetre. Can you believe that? In the days of photo finish, 1 millimetre was all Steve Bauer lost that race by. Remember too, in 1984 in Los Angeles, beaten by Alexei Greywall in the sprint, when it appeared Greywall had had just about enough. Well, it was nice to see my name chalked on the roads. I thank the pavement artists for that, but there's no way I would like to be in the race today with the 8 mountains in prospect. At the moment, we're looking here at a small breakaway being led by Scott Mercier of Team Saturn, and right up behind him is Kirk Willett, the little climber from the Nutrafig Colorado cyclist team from the United States. And this is the team that's boasting the real fast improving Chris Horner, who is in this race as well. to the feed, and the riders in no particular hurry just yet, because they know that the sting today really is in the tail. And as you can see from the shadows now, the sun has replaced the heavy rain we had when we left Bristol. The field coming back together again, more or less. Little breakaway trying to get away here, being led by Javier Rodriguez from the Porcelana Santa Clara team. A little bit of a disagreement going on here. Frankie Andreu getting involved as well. I'm not too sure what the cause of it is, but the rider's not interested in working at all. Sven Teutenberg is the rider also up in the breakaway here at the moment, such as it is. Well, I don't think they're going to get too far with the Spaniard because he doesn't understand any English. As far as I know, Frankie Andreo's Spanish isn't too strong. Still got Scott Mercier here. He went away with Willett after 11 miles today. And the pack still thinking more of the long-term day, and it is a long day too. Kirk Willett here. They've already shared out to the Coolmax sprint as Elizabethan. The only one today at 28 miles. Willett taking it from Mercier. Van Bon, the solid leader in the Coolmax competition, he was third. And he really is a solid leader in that competition now. But we're coming up towards the summit here of Fork Mountain. It looks as though both these riders are struggling a little bit. Approaching the 59 miles point, Mercier won the climb of Jenkins Mountain. Willett took the climb of Stone Mountain. Mercier on Iron Mountain. So it's only fitting that Willett should take the climb of Fork Mountain. They're sharing out the prizes as they're sharing out the pace in the front. But now on the same climb is the chase group, or the bunch as it is, and they're beginning to eat now into the lead. This is a counter move coming from Daniela Nardello, second in the Tour of China last year, and fifth in this event indeed last year. Seems to enjoy racing for the English-speaking promoters, shall we say. He also makes appearances over in Australia. Marcel Wust is the other rider trying to get up, and the Festina rider is Juan Arenas. And this looks as though Scott Mercier has decided now that little Kirk is feeling the pace just that bit too much as we go through towards the 61 miles point. This three-man chase group is getting itself together. Wust is a surprising man, isn't he? Early leader of the GT King of the Mountains, a sprint win under his belt, and now getting into a move here on the day of the big hills, finishing with the giant of them all at Beech. Number 31 is Pascal Hervé. Kirk Willett now being caught. It looks as though Wust has gone from this group, unless he's tucked in there. I don't think he is. We just have Nardello and Arenas. There's the time gap, 2 minutes 18 seconds being shown the peloton now at 68 miles covered as we're heading towards Carver's Gap. Arenas at the back, Nardello setting the pace, and they've caught Scott. So Mercier now takes one good look at them and accelerates just that little bit. But I'm not sure whether the legs are going to hold Scott in there for too long. He's going to have a go though, he's concentrating. Kirk Willett now being passed right down the line to what is left of the big peloton, because this looks to be about 35 men. The pace being set by the super domestique Frankie Andreu. Had 2 second places on stages in the Tour de France. We're waiting for his win, which will surely come. 2 minutes 18 seconds now. Just two men out in front, Nardello and Arenas. Here's Marcel Wust. He was dropped by the other two and is now falling back into the group on Carver's Gap. This is pretty relentless work being put in now by Motorola just to keep everybody in touch with things. Lance's full zip jersey undone all the way down, and now an attack by Pascal Hervé, but he's going very, very early, and the Motorola are reacting. Or at least they appear to be, but they're allowing Hervé to go clear. Well, that's a very brave attack by Pascal to go quite so early on in the stage. because we're looking at around about 70 miles, leaving him 40 miles still to go to the finish. He's trying to get up to his teammate. Nardello's leading. Arenas is the teammate of Hervé, and here he comes. Pascal Hervé tried to contact them on the climb of Carver's Gap. Up and over the top of it, taken by Nardello. Arenas. Hervé will take third. Further down the line, we've got Rominger. Rominger will get fourth. His arm still bandaged from the fall. Into Bristol, but he's keeping that GT Leaders jersey in the King of the Mountains competition with more points in the bag there. The smooth pedalling Pascal Hervé. He's joined the two leaders. That's a fine piece of riding by Hervé. When your team captain can get across a gap on his own, that says something. Nardello takes a good look and sees a second Festina, counts the odds, are no longer in his favour. Now, will he continue to work? Because Hervé is a threat to the overall situation and, of course, will damage Nardello's teammate, Tony Rominger. Now, at the very start of this race, Rominger did say that he was here just for training and that the man for the overall would be Nardello. Well, now we're going to find out as the riders start to make their descent. And they're doing just over 50 miles an hour on the way down. They're freewheeling, so they're not pushing it all the way, because on these sort of roads here, 55 miles an hour, very easily achieved on these bikes. Armstrong, with a small group of riders, has made his team so far do all of the work. He doesn't seem, strangely enough, overly concerned by the fact that one of the most dangerous riders in the race has gone clear in this breakaway. There's the gap at 84 miles, a minute and 30 seconds. So we're still 10 miles away from the Mount Glen climb. Then comes Hickory Nut Gap, and then the climb of Beech Mountain. 3 climbs still ahead. And it looks as though Arenas, who has done an absolutely superb job at pacemaking today for Hervé, has now cast adrift on the climb here. And Nardello is sitting on the back of Pascal Hervé, the man with the mission, because he went up to this group on his own. And I'm not too sure, but Armstrong may have made his first mistake of the tour here. He's seen Arenas come back. That'll give him some confidence. But, you know, Armstrong really should have marked, I think, Hervé closer. And the reason Hervé went early, we simply hoped that Armstrong wouldn't mark him that closely early on. Coming up towards the top of the climb here at Mount Glen. It's been all Hervé ever since they dropped Arenas. Nardello not wanting to endanger Rominger's position too much, while at the same time being carried at the minute to a reasonable lead. We're just over a minute. And Hervé, the man who loves climbs, is really getting on with the job today. A superb piece of riding. He will have a word of thanks, though, for Arenas when he gets to the finish, should he survive. At 10 kilometres to go, he's every chance. That was the top of Hickory Nut Gap. Hervé going over ahead of Nardello, exactly the same as it was on Mount Glen. We're now 100 miles into the race. Rominger has gone over in third place, a minute and 13 seconds down, and Armstrong now getting a little bit concerned. Clearly talking to the team here and saying it's time to close this gap, a minute and 13. Well, providing he's losing ground, and he's on his own now. Pascal Hervé has gone clear on his own. As we start the climb of Beech Mountain, having passed through Banner Elk. Now, can Armstrong do anything about it? There's the face of Rominger in third place. It doesn't look as though it's a very happy one right now. Again, the pacemaking being done, this time by Axel Merckx. This big man making sure he keeps Armstrong at least in a position to springboard the attack. Here's the time check. If we could only see it, yes we can. A minute and 10 seconds is the gap. Well, we're into the last few kilometres of the climb. Every inch of it is uphill, and the top of Beech Mountain is extremely steep. Armstrong is yet to make his move. So for the first time, a rider is actually taking time away from Lance Armstrong in this year's Tour DuPont. Pascal Hervé, the cheeky attack. It's the only way sometimes. Hervé is now on his own in splendid solidarity, fighting Lance Armstrong. The King of the Mountains crouched over his bike and struggling clearly. Armstrong digging that little bit deeper. And now he's kicking hard. Are they going to go with him? Armstrong puts in the attack. Has he left enough time? There's a counter move from one of the Festina riders. I think it was Robert. But I'm not so sure whether he'll be able to hang on to Armstrong today as he tries. Jean-Célier Robert. Armstrong looks over to see who has the audacity to come with him. The rest of the field, including Rominger, are left on the steep slopes of Beech Mountain here. Armstrong is still searching to make more than a minute on Pascal Hervé. And here's Hervé, still looking like a good, solid rider on the climb. Pedaling his lowest gear. He's got a nice rhythm going. And Robert not doing anything more than hanging on to the wheel of Armstrong. He can't contribute to the pace. And Armstrong can only see at the moment the empty road ahead. These are the rare long straights before we start the little hairpin bends towards the summit. Robin is gone. I think that was inevitable. He was gritting his teeth and hoping there, but he's gone now. Jean-Célier Robin dropped by Lance Armstrong. It's now 1-on-1 as we come up towards the last couple of kilometres to the summit. This is the steep bit now as it really starts to kick. Pascal Hervé. This is a classic ride today by the Frenchman. Festina wanted a win to boost their morale, and I think they're going to get it. Armstrong is closing in, but is he closing in quick enough? And the trouble is, you can't see where the riders are chasing because the hairpin bends and the trees obscure your view. But the good news is the hairpin bends come quickly, and so you're quickly out of sight of anybody who's chasing. There's a very fit man. And in fact, Armstrong coming up on Nardello here. Well, I'd forgotten about Nardello. He was dropped and left in no man's land, and there he is. So he has now been swept up on the climb. So there is very definitely 1-on-1 now. Armstrong and Hervé are in first and second place. Nardello is conserving around about, I would think, a 35-40 seconds lead over the bunch, and that may not be enough to survive for third place. Well, it's plenty of time, though, for this man to survive. He knows he's going to do it. 1 kilometre to go. He's not looking like a man who's anywhere near hitting the wall. Pascal Hervé, he broke clear. He caught Nardello and Arenas. He watched Arenas absolutely crucify himself to build the lead before he dropped off, and then left his man alone in the lead. And Pascal Hervé becomes the first man in this year's race to take time away from Armstrong. A question of how much as we approach the finish. Armstrong is pedaling quicker and trying probably harder than he's ever tried before on Beech Mountain for his successes here in the past. But he's still, as you can see, there's the kilometre banner, and you can't see this man after it. So the lead must be still around about a minute. The crowd on Beech Mountain, which is one of the nicest days we've had up here. It can be a very cold place. Remember, at this height, we're just sort of coming out of winter. As you can see from the trees, the leaves aren't quite with us just yet. But this is a great place to ski and a great place to visit in the summer as well. And Lance Armstrong can't get the visit over quick enough as he races up towards the summit now. He's still got lots of firepower in those legs. His pride will be a little bit hurt. He won't like conceding time on this climb. It's one of his favourite climbs too, because he's been so successful here in the past. But today he's going to have to be content with second place and a little bit of a time gap reduction on that Food Line leader's yellow jersey of his. Just over the top, the road tips over, and then it's round the bends and over the line. And Pascal Hervé, he doesn't win many races in his life. In fact, he's only won a couple in his career. But now he's going to pull off this one after second place in the Tour of Chile, second place in the Tour of the Pays Basque. He's now going to land himself a stage win in the Tour DuPont, and it's going to be a fine moment to savour. This has been a great attacking ride by Hervé, and he's become the clear number 2 favourite now in this race, ahead of Tony Rominger. As he punches the air, looks at his team car and says, "That's it, we've done it." A massive crowd here, one of the biggest crowds we've seen on top of Beech Mountain, and they're going to watch a great rider take the line. A French victory for Pascal Hervé today. Now the clock is starting counting down to Lance Armstrong. He's made up some good ground, but he's still going to concede quite a bit of time. So Airy collects his second win of the tour, of the season rather. He won a stage of the Pays Basque, of the Tour of Chile rather, on his way to finishing second overall. Armstrong gets second. And so while Armstrong warms down, Nardello did finish third, Rominger finished fourth, Gonzalez fifth, John-Sully-Roban sixth, Andy Hampson, there he comes in eighth, and Garcia Casas was ninth. And there's confirmation, 51 seconds lost time for Lance Armstrong in the ride today. Nardello got third overall. Armstrong now leads by 1 minute and 58 over Airy. Rominger still almost 5 minutes back.
Did everything they could to get you in position, but Hervé just had too much of a lead. Did he surprise you?
Well, I thought with a minute and 20 or a minute and a half at the bottom, after being out there, knowing the severity of this mountain, I figured he would come back. But impressive ride. I'm very impressed. I really thought they would come back because I felt like that's definitely the fastest I've ever been on Beech myself. So impressive.
You went straight down the hill.
I'm not happy at all because tactically I rode terrible today, and the reason those guys had to work so hard is because I made the wrong decisions tactically. So when he went on Carver's Gap, it wasn't as if it was extremely hard at that point. I just figured it's way too early for him to go. So my hat's off to him. That was a hell of a ride to stay away that long.
Indeed it was, and that's why Pascal Airy is all smiles for only his second victory of the year here in the Tour DuPont. And Lance Armstrong made a slight error, but he came out of it on the right side. He keeps his Food Line leader's yellow jersey, of course. And the start today at the beautiful mountain city of Blowing Rock in North Carolina, and it's literally all downhill from Blowing Rock to Charlotte in North Carolina, where there's a prize of $10,000 for the winner today, and that will take some racing for. Always on call for the autographs, the overall leader, Lance Armstrong, and so far this race, apart from Pascal Airy, has not been too big a problem to him. Now, who will win it? It should be a day for the sprinters. Let's start with Marcel Wurst and see what his chances are.
Well, what else should I say? I mean, if I could win another one, it doesn't really matter which one it is. If it's going to be today, I mean, there's the bonus of the money. But the most important is to win another stage. But with one so far, I'm happy.
Sven Teutenberg won this stage and the $10,000 when he was an amateur.
I won it 2 years ago, so today we have a pretty strong team left. We have 7 riders, and I think we can go for it.
Away from the beautiful town of Blowing Rock, a town where the race has never been before, and a town which really looked after the riders with great pride last night. And now we've got one rider here, and this is Tony Rominger saluting the crowd as he coasts through the race here at the sprints, but they're more or less all together. That was at Lenoir after 23 miles. Second was Peter de Klerk, and Leon Van Bon finished in third place, continuing to lead clearly the Coolmax Hotspot Sprint Series. And since the sprint, there hasn't been too many attacks. We've had one breakaway of some 9 or 10 riders went clear after 20 miles, but they've got reeled in. Another break of 5 riders went at 32, a different break of 5 riders at 34. Constant attacks, none has worked so far to get away from a very vigilant field. This is Rob Mulders here now from Colstrop, who's still looking for that elusive stage win. And Damien MacDonald going through, who won the Tour of Langkawi in Malaya this year, and took a major, in fact the Aussie team won somewhere in the region of $75,000, a tremendous achievement because it was a very lowly categorised amateur type race, but the prize money was enormous and the Australians won almost everything. This is Gert Verheyen of the Flandrian 2002 team, but nobody willing to really pull the weight here. The main field are creeping up again. It's been an early breakaway. And immediately an attack by Damien MacDonald. who still has very much a chance of getting on to the Australian Olympic team, which will go largely to the professional element of the team. But MacDonald is one of only 2 amateurs still under consideration. MacDonald tried to open up the gaps, but they simply won't come at the moment. Into the streets of Charlotte now. An attack by Adriano Baffy. Baffy came up to MacDonald. MacDonald let him go. 15 seconds. This is quite an attack here now. Joined 2 here by Steve Bauer. Bauer, the rider who's had 1 second place, now looks over his shoulder to see if it's worth having a go for this one. $10,000 for the win this time, but they're on him as well, so the whole field are going to come down for a big sprint finish here. It was anticipated, but the riders have done everything in their power to break up this big bunch today with constant attacks. But the teams have clawed their way back for the sprinters into this race. Now, can Marcel Wust strengthen his leg? Bauer is on the front as they just come on to his back wheel. The US Postal Service are right there, so too is Sven Teutenberg. Glenn Magnussen, the Amore Vita rider, is close in on this race at all. Leon Van Bon is also mixing it in now. But De Bauer goes away from our right as coming through now is Sven Teutenberg. He's going to do it again. He's done it once before. He gets the 10,000 again, and this time for his American US Postal Service team. He's a professional now, so that won't embarrass the professionals anymore. He claims the $10,000. What a great result for him. And that was 7 years on from his last victory. So now the riders facing up between Rock Hill and Greenville, both the towns in South Carolina, 118 miles. Lovely clear blue skies. And the riders, an undulating route, but nothing too strenuous, as they now head up towards the final weekend of what has been a great tour, especially for Team Motorola and Lance Armstrong. Chris Horner having made the move here very early on with Nate Rees. 2 Americans on the attack. US Postal Service, Nate Rees, now in his final season as a professional, and newcomer Chris Horner, only a young man from Boulder, Colorado, and Chris is riding for the Nutrafig Colorado cyclist team. And not surprisingly, there's no big chase down at the moment. Just some nice examples of stunning scenery here in South Carolina as we head slowly but surely towards the state of Georgia for the weekend finish. This attack coming midway through the stage. We had Van Bon again clean up in the Coolmac Sprint at York after 19 miles. And then the breakaway started, and Chris Horner ahead of Rees at Blacksburg, 39 miles covered. Marcel Wust got third there, by the way. And at Gaffney it was Horner ahead of Rees, and these 2 riders now heading down towards the series of circuits in Greenville, and the lead is still a considerable one at more than 6 minutes on the field. There's the field. They haven't put in too much of a defence or anything today. They're still very tired after the Battle of Beech, and Armstrong is not going to react, I don't think, if Rominger or Hervé don't react. It's not the course for Hervé, certainly. There's a counter-attack going up through the finishing straight here, as they do a number of circuits, 4 in all under the finishing banner before they cross the line finally. And it seems to always be beautiful and hot in Greenville. This is a very good finishing circuit here. It's a 4-mile lap for the riders. And 6:15 is still the gap. Well, that's enormous. That's over the main field, but there are riders in between now. We haven't seen them, but certainly chasing is Rob Mulders and Tom DeSmet, both of the Colstrop team. But again, they're going to be denied a stage win because they can't possibly close the gap. And Mulders is around about 4 minutes down at the moment. I think Team Motorola going through the actions of just doing their job as a team today. The action is right here, and Chris Horner, a find on the American circuit for sure. He's having a good season, lapped the field in the small race in Athens, down in Georgia, which is where we're headed to tomorrow. And Nate Rees, well, I always say to Nate, I remember him when he won a stage at a stage finish called the Big Banana, which was in Coffs Harbour in New South Wales in Australia. Uphill finish in a banana plantation. And when he was racing for the US amateur team, he was the first man there. Now his career is coming to an end, and it's going to be a difficult sprint. He's got Horner pinned on the right by the traffic cones there. That's the experience of a top professional now, but Horner's let him go. He's giving him a length now. Nate Rees has gone for a very long sprint here. That must be a sign of confidence, and he's giving it everything. He's pulled out a length and a quarter. He's looked across, but Horner's coming back up the inside of all places. He's allowed the door to open, and Horner's got through it, I think. I think he took it on the line by the skin of his racing tyre. He does too. This is Rob Mulders taking third place today. So he chased all around these 4 finishing circuits, and he's going to get a nice solid third place for Colstrop. Rob Mulders, who's ridden a Tour de France in his career, on this very hot day in Greenville, grabs third. And the whole field, they've swept up Tom de Smet. That is Marcel Wust, who's gone through on the inside. And it's going to be Wust who will clean up. He will take the 4th place sprint, beaten by the 3 who escaped. But what about the winner, Chris Horner?
Hey, it's a long way from the bike shop to winning a stage in the Tour DuPont. How does it feel?
It feels incredible, you know. I mean, it's incredible. I didn't even think we'd get this far, you know. We just turned around, next thing you know, we got 11 minutes, and here we are.
What gave you the confidence to think a man like Nate Rees you could go toe-to-toe with and then take him on at the end?
Oh, I didn't think I could go toe-to-toe with him. I mean,
I told you, let him lead it out.
I didn't think I could go toe-to-toe. I just, you know, figure if worse comes to worse, you know, second at DuPont ain't all that bad, you know, but at first is a whole lot better. Hey, Chris.
What a happy guy Chris Horner is, and not so for Nate Rees, beaten in a very tight finish indeed.
Maybe I'll get him tomorrow.
And what about the leader, Lance Armstrong? Happy with the Tour so far?
Well, it's a different race. I mean, this is much different than the Tour, and it's obviously a lot different than the Olympics, but I have to look at the Tour de France this year as my preparation for the Olympic Games, which is, after this event, will be the biggest priority of the year. So I'm obviously very excited. I hope I can reach a second peak, which sometimes is difficult and a lot of people consider to be very difficult. So I'm excited and I'm motivated, and I think that having the home field advantage will be a big help.
But the win this time going to Chris Horner, same time as Nate Rees, Mulders and Wust and Federico Colonna getting 5th place. Overall, still the same, 1:58 to Hervé and 5:08 to Tony Rominger. And the penultimate stage, the longest stage of the race at 145 miles, leaving Clemson, South Carolina, heading to Kennesaw State College in Cobb County in Georgia. Marietta officially is the finish of this penultimate day. And there's no big challenges on the way, except the distance, of course, after so many days in the saddle. And then the riders will face up tomorrow to the last time trial. Armstrong looking very, very safe indeed. He must keep his nose clean, of course, today. And so as the Motorola team pull the race along, it reminds me that we should talk to one particular rider who's saying goodbye to the race this year, Sean Yates. And in fact, I asked him when we went to the Ghent-Wevelgem race exactly what he was thinking about retirement. The man who has always been the top rider as a domestique on this team. A man who's won the Tour of Belgium, for example, finished 2nd in the Tour of Holland, won the yellow jersey in the Tour de France. Now, a wonderful career is coming to an end, and at Ghent-Wevelgem earlier this year, I spoke to him. Sean, each time we speak this year, you're riding the last time one of these classic races. I mean, how do you feel yourself?
I'm, you know, in a way pleased that it's my last year, and each race is going to be my last. It's you know, it's a bit sad in a way because I've been many years that I've been riding these races, and it's hard to sort of let go, but you have to stop sometime. So that's what I say to myself.
Can you remember how many times you've ridden Ghent-Wevelgem?
I think it's 12, 13 times. I haven't really counted.
You've had a tremendously long career as a pro, haven't you? What do you put down the reason for that? Most pros last about 8 or 9 years.
I think I'm just sort of strong, you know. Got a strong constitution, which enabled me to sort of keep going for so long, because it's a hard sport and it's getting harder and harder. When I started, it wasn't as hard as now. It was not so competitive. So obviously that helped prolong my career a bit, because you know, guys who are turning pro now, I don't think that you won't see very many doing 15 years. It's just too tough.
Ouch, 15 years as a pro. What a great bike rider. And here's the man, Leon Van Bon, who's a clear leader in the Coolmax Sprint. He's got 83 points in total. Marcel Wust is second, and he's got 50 points. And there he is on the right. While on his right is Chris Horner, who was voted the Power Bar Man of the Day yesterday. Constant stream of attacks again. Nothing has come to be too serious yet. Everybody's been kept reasonably under control. As once again, Scott Mercier tries to get this little group going and being joined by Paul Brosnan of Australia, and the other man on the attack from the Colstrop team is Peter de Klerk. Three riders who would have a chance, I would think. The combination is right. They're no threat at all overall. But these days in big-time bike racing, the field seems to chase everything down. Paul Brosnan gritting his teeth. He survived a very bad accident in South Africa a couple of years ago when he was hit by a car head-on when he was training, and it was said he would never ride again, and he's gone right back to the top level of cycling, so good for him. Here's Scott Mercier. Jean-Pierre Hendricks won the first Coolmax Sprint at Seneca after 12 miles. And Peter de Klerk won the one at Toccoa after 42 miles, but the field is regrouping all of the time. As we head down towards the finish, Armstrong will feel this is something like a day off. As long as he keeps the race reasonably together, he'll be quite happy. Tomorrow he's got to come out and turn the style on again. Tyler Hamilton now having a little dig as we head out of Woodstock. US Postal Service rider almost got his stage win when we raced into Bristol, but it didn't quite work out, and in the end it was Kelowna who took the sprint from the group. But they've had one stage win, Sven Teutenberg taking the stage down at Charlotte. Bobby Julich setting the pace for Team Motorola, the boys in blue and red, and they now know, news has broken during the week, that Team Motorola are retiring from sponsorship at the end of this season, so along with Yates they will leave the professional circuit, and that is sad. There's Eddie Borisevich, the man that was responsible for 9 medals in the Olympic Games in 1984 for the United States in Los Angeles. Now the manager of the US Postal Service team, and happy with the way his team are attacking today, I would think. Now Flandrian, 2002 rider, having a real ripper off the front of the bunch. But again, the bunch following them everywhere. This is showing all of the trait of being a bunch sprint today. Slowly but surely the riders coming back together again. And into the last kilometre, and all the breakaways have been wiped out, so it is going to be a bunch sprint. The sprinters get their last chance before they finish the road race stages of this year's Tour DuPont. And watch out for that red jersey figure of Marcel Wust, because he's the rider always looking for the action, but there's a good sprint. Leon Van Bon is getting in there too. It looks like Van Bon might land a good one here. Sven Teutenberg is right up there as well. Wust is coming on the left though. Teutenberg will have to do his second. Marcel Wust gets the first place. The man that smacked his handlebars there, I think, was Federico Colonna. He had to be content with the third place finish. And there they are, Colonna on the right. Marcel Wust gets stage win number 2, while the Food Line race leader Armstrong collects another $1,000 for holding on to that race lead. And holding on is hardly the word, because he is now minutes ahead. No change at all overall. Here's the slow motion again with the man on the left, Marcel Wust, beating Sven Teutenberg, Colonna and Magnussen. And that's the last we'll see of the sprinters in this year's Tour DuPont, because the riders now face up to their final individual time trial over 9.1 miles. Totally flat circuit, but there's a strong wind blowing. And so we come down to the second and final time trial, and as you can see, the wind is very, very strong here in Marietta. The race now facing up to its final stage. Well, Lance Armstrong has really only made one slight mistake on this race. That was when he lost a little bit of time to Beech Mountain to Pascal Hervé. He made no mistakes in the last time trial, but the rumour is that Tony Rominger would like to get a little bit of his own back. Let's go back to the action. And here is Rominger, just gone out onto the course, settling very quickly into the style we've all come so familiar with. Remember, he's the only man to have beaten Miguel Indurain over a distance in the recent Tour de France. In a time trial, he's underway All the gaps are 2-minute intervals for the top 10 overall, as the last man to go to an enormous cheer is the dominant factor of this year's Tour DuPont, Lance Armstrong. If he wins today, it'll be his 5th stage victory. He's already taken out one time trial, slightly shorter than this one. But Rominger, since then, has shown signs of finding a little bit of form. We're expecting him to fight that little bit harder today. Settles into that streamlined position. Tony Rominger turned professional back in 1986. Here's Lance Armstrong. My goodness me, how this man has improved his time trialing over the years. One-on-one, the fights, there's the clock, 33 miles an hour, 35 and accelerating for Tony Rominger. So we're going to see another very quick time trial. Armstrong doing a record time trial for the Tour last time out, being followed by his Motorola team car. And Rominger, at the moment, the splits are pretty even. We haven't got through to the halfway point yet. But Lance Armstrong, my goodness me, how his time trialing has improved. Remember the 1994 Tour de France when Miguel Indurain caught him early? This has been a tremendous performance by the king of the time trial. Indurain is the first time on the board now. It's going to be about 2 minutes and he hits the line. It is 2 minutes exactly. Well, here's one man who knows what it's like to feel the pain of Miguel Indurain.
Lance, that was a tough time trial,
eh? Certainly that was the most extreme I've ever had to go. I was in the last 15 Ks. I didn't even feel like I was pedaling. It was just kind of going around, and I'm completely exhausted right now. And zilch left.
What was it like when Indurain caught you? Was that a big surprise that he caught you so quickly? He's flying along.
He was flying. That was, that was my big goal before the race, is to stay away from him, but he's super right now. Rominger's not even, it's over. It's finished now. The way that guy came by, and that was probably part of the reason that I was so wasted in the end, because I tried to match his speed, and he goes along the flats 55, 56, 57 Ks an hour. I was 53.11, getting dropped.
But that was in 1994, and now it's Armstrong's chance to dish out the beating, because there's indications now he's nudging a few seconds ahead of Tony Rominger. And Rominger is riding currently at the same time, locked on with his teammate, Daniele Nardello. Here's Rominger coming round to the finish. Nardello is in with the best time so far. Nardello's time is 18 minutes and 25 seconds. And Rominger and Nardello were the same at halfway. Armstrong is slightly ahead of them both. He's not in yet, of course. 35-year-old who will ride probably one more year after this is heading towards the finish now, searching the form for might win in the Tour de France. His time, though, is slipping away. In fact, it's not going to be the best time. It's going to take him more than Nardello's time to get to the line, even though it's close. 18:25 is Nardello, 18:26 is Tony Rominger. Now, there is a surprise. Rominger, only second behind teammate Daniele Nardello, who's pulled out a great ride. And Armstrong, again, giving us all of the indication he is going to be the only man to break the 18-minute barrier if he keeps the pace up to the line. What an incredible tour this has been for Lance Armstrong. Everything has gone so right for him. His plan when this race ends is to take a little bit of a break back home in Texas and get down to some serious training and then come back for the Tour of Switzerland. So we're going to miss him on the scene for a little while. He started so well with that great ride in Paris-Nice. Then he came and had the Spring Classics in that wonderful Ardennais weekend with a win in the Flèche Wallonne and second place in Liège-Bastogne-Liège. And now he has literally ran away with the Tour DuPont. And the man who's coming in now is second overall currently, Pascal Hervé. But he's all over the road. That's cost him a couple of seconds to start with. His time is not going to be a good one. He can afford to lose a bit of time, such has been his riding over the past 12 days. He should hang on to his high finish. And in fact, he's going to come up to the line outside of 19 minutes, so he's going to finish a little bit down the field here. He might be outside the top 10. He's struggling all the way to the line. Time trialling, not his speciality, as he tries to raise a little sprint for the line. 19 minutes and 13 seconds for Pascal Hervé. He'll keep his second place with that. Approaching the finishing line now, Lance Armstrong, the big man who's going to go out with his 5th stage victory of the Tour DuPont and a clear winner of the race. He's won last year and finished second in the 2 years prior to that. Armstrong has got time to give a 2-arm salute if he so wished, but he's too vain for that. He wants the fast time and he's going to get it. This is going to be another over 30 miles an hour ride for him in a time trial, again on windy conditions. There's the clock. He's well inside 18 minutes. Nobody else has done that. And Lance Armstrong is going to hit the line in 17 minutes and 56 seconds. A clear victory for Lance Armstrong, number 5, and the overall win of this year's Tour DuPont. Lance Armstrong unbeaten in the time trials. There's the victory margin, 28 over Nardello, almost half a minute this time over Rominger. Baffy turning in another good ride, he was 4th. The final overall standings, 3 minutes 15 to Pascal Hervé, the winning margin of Lance Armstrong. 3rd, Tony Rominger. Now, Rominger really will not like such a big time gap, but even so, he's come here for training. He's going back with a very high finish. Lance Armstrong is the man shaking hands with all the principal winners, Mappe winning the team prize, Armstrong taking the final yellow jersey. And there is the massive crowd that's turned out here at Kennesaw State College to toast the champions of this year's Tour DuPont, and no greater champion than Lance Armstrong. But remember, his team are out of the sport at the end of this season. He's looking for a new home next year. And my goodness me, this was the right year to win this race, wasn't it? Hervé all smiles on the left for a fine second place. Rominger a little bit pensive on the right. Just thinking perhaps the Tour de France, it may be a lot harder than I envisaged. The last yellow jersey for Lance Armstrong. He's earned $1,000 a day for every day he wore that jersey, so there's a cool $12,000 to start with. And then, of course, the first prize as well, and the lion's share indeed, in $250,000 in prize money. And for the record, Andy Hampston was the second best American rider for the US Postal Service in 6th place. Well, nobody can deny Lance Armstrong. He's the real champion of the 1996 Tour DuPont. A record 5 stage wins. Earlier in the Tour, he did a record average speed for the time trial. He took out both time trials. He really was the very best rider in this event. Will it be the same story in the Tour de France or even the Olympic Games? Only time will tell. Until the next time, I'm Phil Liggett saying goodbye.